Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Imtiaz Arif, the Pakistan Studies teacher. Today we are going to take up the chapter number 3, which is about the land and environment of Pakistan. In this chapter, we are going to talk about the two questions. Question number 14 is about the environmental hazards. Hazards mean the various threats, its various types, and the various efforts done for the solution in the form of remedies. And the other question is the question number 16, which is about the various threats to water, soil, vegetation, and wildlife in Pakistan. Both these questions are part of a single topic, and the contents of which can be found from page 29 to 87 of your book. So, we are going to talk about this whole topic in this setting. The main objective of this discussion is to make you understand the various environmental hazards, the various threats which we are facing, its types, its effects on the human life and on the globe, and the consequences, and the various efforts undertaken for the solution of all these problems. First of all, we need to understand the term environment. In fact, all the things and factors around us that affect us directly are called the environment. It includes the physical features of land, climate, soil, vegetation, and other factors. In Arabic language, environment is called mahal. Ma means whatever, haula means around us. Whatever is around us. We are often, we the human beings, the animals, and the plants are surrounded by three major factors: the earth under our feet, the air in which we breathe, and the water which we consume for our survival. These three factors, in the form of air, water, and soil, they affect all our activities, our economic, political, social, religious, financial, and other activities which we perform in specific area under the influence of these environmental factors. The various hazards or threat to human environment are, for example, the rapidly growing population of the human beings. Uh, on the other side, we are facing problems of fulfilling the uh, requirements of this greater mass of the human beings of the population. It becomes very difficult to have self-sufficiency in food. Uh, Similarly, we are uh, rapidly losing fertile land or resources, especially having the cultivable land shortage, the water shortage, etc. Similarly, because of these environmental factors, our fertile land is also turning into barren land. We need to understand all these threats so we could find a solution to all these problems. The major threats which we are facing in the existing world are in the form of waterlogging and salinity, the deforestation, desertification, and environmental pollution. First of all, we need to understand the waterlogging and salinity. The excessive underground water is called the waterlogging, and the most complicated form of waterlogging is called salinity. Uh, at present, about 20 million acres of land in Pakistan is suffering from waterlogging and salinity. It is not only affecting the fertility of our soil, and we are not getting the desired yield from the crops, but the environmental pollution is also increasing because of waterlogging and salinity. Some of the major factors or the causes of the waterlogging and salinity are the seepage of the canal water into the ground, since most of our canals are not properly cemented, so this water is seeps into the ground, and it is one of the reasons due to which the underground water level is rising. The uneven fields in our area, most of the fields are not in an even formation, so that is also resulting into the waterlogging and salinity. Old and primitive methods of irrigation are also one of the reasons due to which excessive amount of water is entered into the underground water table. The repetition of the same crops in an area is also one of the reasons due to which the land loses its fertility, and that leads to the waterlogging and salinity. But the most important factor, which is the major reason for the waterlogging and salinity, is in fact the one we are going to talk about in the next part, that is the deforestation, the ruthless cutting of the trees. Because the trees, like us, are the living organism, they constantly absorb water from this underground table, and once the trees are cut down, so then the consumption of water under the ground reduces, which results in the rise of the water table, and it ultimately reaches the upper crust of the soil, bringing along with it the various minerals which are present in the soil. And these minerals, since are very toxic and poisonous, and they cover the upper surface of the land, and due to which the land totally turns infertile. And the government is trying its level best to cure this problem of the waterlogging and salinity. Some of the methods which we employ, that includes the installation of the tube wells. Tube wells, they are considered one of the major source with the help of which this excessive amount of water can be taken out of the ground. But that in Pakistan is a very costly business, because we are already facing a severe shortage of electricity. So, in such a case, the tube wells are not that good operative. Similarly, the banks of the canals and the water channels are not strengthened. So, due to which the water constantly seeps into the ground. So the government is trying to strengthen the banks of the various canals and rivers, so the water seepage into the ground could somehow be reduced. Then the irrigation of the fields is also one of the area for which the government is spending huge amount of money every year. During the winter season, we normally observe the these water channels are purified. In fact, the excessive amount of sediment which is present in the bed of these water channels is taken out with the help of the excavators, etc. So, the basic purpose is that the water could smoothly, without any obstruction, it should move into their channels, and the seepage into the ground should be reduced. Then the government has established a number of laboratories for testing of water quality and soil in an area for estimating the severity of the water logging and salinity in that area. Similarly, the farmers are given the training, and the counseling of the farmers is done, so they could also help the government in overcoming this problem. The other problem is the deforestation, which we refer to in form of the water logging and salinity. Deforestation is the ruthless cutting of the trees. It is generally uh, thought that every country, they must have at least 20 to 25% of their area covered with forest. In Pakistan, the case is not that encouraging. It is rather pathetic that we have only 5% of our land covered with forest, and that is rapidly regressing because of the increase in the population, the consumption of the timber and the woods, etc., is increasing, due to which we are constantly depriving ourselves of this natural resource. There are some other reasons of the deforestation as well. That is, apart from excessive cutting of the trees, we need to have wood, timber, for meeting our indigenous resource various requirements, because we have to make the furniture, we have to make the buildings, and everywhere the wood is needed during the construction. The population is increasing, so the consumption of the wood is also increasing. That is also leading to the deforestation. Waterlogging and salinity is also one of the reason, due to which vast stretches of land are deprived of the forests. They turn infertile, and of course, the forests there, they also decay. The other reason are the various diseases in Pakistan. Unfortunately, and the farmers or the landowners, they do not have that much resources to cure the various diseases, due to which the trees often wipe out. Decrease in the rainfall is also one of the reason, because in many areas where the land is totally dependent on the rainwater, when the rains are very scanty, so then of course the growth of the forest is unexpected, cannot be expected. uh, then sometimes during the summer season, fires broke out in the forest. That is also one of the reasons due to which we lose a major portion of our forest. Environmental pollution, the have its negative effects on the plants as well, like the human beings, and in most of the cases, the plant life heavily suffers because of the environmental pollution. Then the shortage of the river water in Pakistan, since we do not have any dams or barrages according to our requirement. The only dams we have, that is the Mangla and Tarbela and the Warsak dams. Apart from that, we have quite few barrages, but they are not sufficient for our water storage capacity. So that is also the result, due to which we are facing the shortage of river water. And once the river water is not there, so naturally cultivation and the growth of the trees cannot be encouraged. This deforestation is resulting in so many problems. This is one of the reason due to which the government income also decreases, because the consumption of the wood is increasing, and we are left with very little wood for other purposes. Of course, export is one of the area where we export a number of the commodities, and while we lose for wood in our domestic requirements, so very little wood is left for export. Similarly, it leads to the soil erosion, the cutting of the land into smaller pieces or fragments. That is what we call the land erosion, because these trees, they keep the soil intact. Once the trees are the roots of the trees, in fact, they help the soil to remain intact once the trees are removed. So then, and of course, the soil, the soft soil cannot hold itself together, and it is very easily swept by the natural disasters, the fast moving wind, or the hailing, or the rainfall, this snow, etc. They all uh, result in these decrease of the trees. Climatic changes, as we said, are also one of the reasons due to which the growth of the trees reduces alarmingly. Uh, then sedimentation is also one of the problem in our dams and the barrages, that is created mainly because of the lesser number of the trees. Because once the trees are removed, so then the upper crust of the soil, it is very easily swept by floods, the rainwater, and it accumulates in the dams and the barrages in the form of sediment. It greatly reduces its natural life. Uh, Similarly, the wildlife heavily suffers because of the deforestation. The trees are not there, so the animals and the birds have little chance of survival. Then, of course, in the modern world, tourism plays an important role in the economy of every country. And while we have uh, less forest, so it means lesser attraction and environmental beauty to attract the foreigners. And of course, that is one of the reasons due to which our income reduces alarmingly. Uh, it also leads to environmental pollution because the trees absorb the carbon dioxide which the human beings constantly release, and they produce the oxygen, which is the basic essential part of the human requirement, without which the human cannot survive even for few seconds. So this balance is greatly disturbed because of the lesser number of the trees. So this kind of disturbance leads to the greater production of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, because the human beings, they constantly release carbon dioxide and the trees are not there to absorb it. So this carbon dioxide, remember, is a heat absorbent. So once it remains suspended in the atmosphere, so it increases the overall global temperature of the area, and of course that leads to further many complications. The government is trying its level best to somehow overcome this problem. For this purpose, the plantation campaign is launched twice every year, uh, and especially in the monsoon season. The government encourages the people for the plantation of the various plants. Similarly, the governments, in our case, they provide the small seedlings and the seeds to the people. Nurseries are grown everywhere where the people could have these plants free of cost. Advertisement campaign is launched to electronic media and print media to create awareness among the people that how important the forests are for our survival. So it is hoped that with the help of the efforts and of course the awareness among the people, the situation would improve. Uh, then the other problem which we face is the desertification. Allah has blessed Pakistan with the wealth of fertile land, but the fertile land is changing into deserts. Some of the major reasons of the desertification are when we continuously grow the same crops on a stretch of land repeatedly, it reduces its fertility to a greater extent, due to which the land becomes barren and turns into desert. Then the excessive grazing of the fields by the various animals, the vegetation is uprooted and it also changes the land into deserts. The use of poor methods of cultivation, since in our country ag- agriculture is still done on the primitive basis. Similarly, the cutting of the trees and exposing the upper crust of the soil to the natural changes, the atmospheric changes, rapidly increasing the of the soil erosion are some of the causes which result in desertification of an area. Salinity and water logging are also one of the reason, because this waterlogging and salinity turn the land into infertile land, and of course then nothing can grow there, which result in transforming of that piece of land into a desert. Similarly, the fast growing population as one of the factor which turn the land into desert. Because for the human beings, uh, I once come across a saying somewhere where they said that wherever is man, there is pain. Wherever the man goes, they create the problems. So naturally, the humans, they have to look for their own requirements, but it also have very bad impacts on the other living organisms. For example, we have human beings, we have to construct a house, and the construction of the house means wiping out of the trees from that area. We have to make the roads, cut down the trees. We have to make the hospital, cut down the trees. We have to make the industries. Then again, the trees are cut down. So this ruthless cutting of the trees means that exposing the land to the natural changes, the phenomena, the various phenomena which take place and which result in the infertility of the upper crust of the soil. Then the other important factor is the pollution, the environmental pollution. Environmental pollution, this in fact is the introduction of contamination into a natural environment. Contamination in so many forms. We add impurities, uh, dirt, contamination to the air, to the soil, to the uh, water channels as well. Pure and natural environment is inevitable for proper growth of the living organism on the earth. The increase in the human population is directly proportional to the increase of the human needs of life. It means the more human population, the more human needs will be there. This is creating problems because the human needs, they collide with the nature. Uh, the God has created the trees, but the human beings then need to cut down those trees and transform them into the furniture and use them into the construction of their houses. So this whole order is disturbed, which results in the environmental pollution. The environmental pollution is divided into four major parts: air pollution, water pollution, soil pollution, and noise pollution. The air pollution is simply the pure atmosphere of the around us, or the air is essential for our uh, human beings, for us, for the vegetation, for the animals. But with every passing day, it is becoming harder and harder to get pure air. Some of the major reasons are, uh, for example, the smoke. The smoke, it is the uh, release of the various gases from the factories, the houses, the vehicles, and of course the fire, etc. These gases, they add to the air and make the whole environment dirty or impure. And of course, while we breathe into that air, so this smoke greatly damages our life. This harmful gases is another factor which are produced through the fertilizer, the pesticides, insecticide, and even the human activities also included, because a major portion of the population, they constantly consume air freshener and the perfumes and the aerosols and the mosquito killers, etc. So these are also the various kinds of the gases. Similarly, the various pesticides, insecticides, herbicides, which are sprayed over the vegetation for having a good yield, they also are added to the atmosphere, which result in the contamination of the environment. Then the dust, not only in the form of fast moving wind, cyclones, but also the human activities, because the traffic, while fastly moves, it also helps in the dust particle to rise. Similarly, the other human activities, they result in the rise of the dust particles, and these dust particles combined with these harmful gases and the atmospheric water vapors, they turn into smog. Smog is in fact the combination of smoke and fog. So this combination plays a very important role in the contamination of the whole atmospheric condition of an area. The effects of the air pollution normally leads to so many climatic changes, not only in the form of creating various disease among the human beings and the animals and the crops, but also the overall temperature of the earth is also increased. As I told you, the carbon dioxide, excessive amount of the carbon dioxide present in the atmosphere leads to the absorption of more heat from the surrounding, which is often produced by the fast moving uh, vehicles and the industries and the other human activities, and this leads to the increase in the global temperature, which has its own negative effects upon life. The other important factor is the water pollution. The water, of course, the basic requirement of not only the human beings but the animals and plant life as well. Uh, this water is contaminated by so many factors. The polluted water from our houses, from our industries, is constantly released into the rivers and canals. It affects not only the aquatic life, but of course, that contaminated water is again seeped into the ground, that is absorbed into the ground, it is added to the underground water tank, and this is what we again extract and take out for our domestic requirements. So, this whole cycle affects not only the aquatic life and the other plants, but also the human beings directly. The polluted water of the houses through the sewage system seeps into the ground because most of our drainage sewage system is not properly cemented. So the water remains standing there, not only serves as the breeding places for the various insects like the mosquitoes, flies, etc., but also constantly seeps into the ground, which pollutes the underground water. The drainage system in our country mostly is directly uh, opened into the various canals and the river, which pollutes their life. All over the world, the common practice is that this impure water from the houses and the various industries, it is properly treated with treatment plants, and then it is released into these water channels in the purified form. But here, unfortunately, in the third world countries, such practice don't exist. Similarly, the various pesticides, insecticides, herbicides, etc., which are sprayed on the crops, they are swept away, washed away by the rainwater, and these chemicals, they move into the uh, rivers and the canals, and in the long run they seep into the ground and is added to the underground tanks. Various fertilizers in the agriculture field are also directly added to these water channels. They are absorbed into the ground and they create a lot of complication for us. So the effects of the water pollution on our life are quite severe, because the number of the patients are constantly increasing, suffering from various diseases like the cholera, hepatitis, typhoid, skin diseases, even the eye infections, etc. These are some of the complications which exist among the human being. It is not only harmful to the human beings, but as I earlier said, it damages the aquatic life and the animals and the various vegetation, because all these vegetations and the plants and the trees, they get their water supply from all these channels as well, so they are also affected. The other factor is the soil pollution. uh, Soil pollution is the dirty look of the soil. The soil uh, looks very dirty. We constantly add a lot of trash and rubbish, dirt into our surrounding, and that transform the world into a garbage drum. Some of the major factors include the garbage of the houses and the industries, thrown outside very recklessly without any proper care. The spraying of the various pesticides, etc., and the chemical fertilizer is also one of the reason due to which the vegetations heavily suffer, and they are often killed, which result in the infertility and the desertification of the land. The natural disasters, uh, like floods, earthquake, etc., even the severe rainfall, snow, etc., they also affect the upper crust of the soil, and due to which plantation life heavily suffers, which result in the longer run in the soil pollution. Salinity and waterlogging, one of the chief factor of the soil pollution, which also creates a lot of problem for us. But above all of them, it is in the major factor is the human activities. We human constantly add a lot of trash to our surrounding, and not only adding rubbish, garbage, but also cutting of the trees that changes the overall look of the atmosphere of the soil, which result to the cracking of the soil, and of course the land erosion, etc. The various effects of this soil pollution is, of course, one of the major effect is that food items do not grow, so the food production is heavily damaged. The world all over are facing the shortage of the food. Uh, uh, this soil pollution has it does have the harmful effects upon the crops as well. The forest and the wildlife also suffer because of this soil pollution, due to which we are heavily suffering. The other factor is the noise pollution. Unnecessary and unwanted sound, noise created in the atmosphere. This is what we call the noise pollution. The noise is produced by the human beings in the form of traffic, industries, the wagons, cars, rickshaws, aircrafts, loudspeakers, horns, machines, etc. They are all the various sources through which the noise is becoming a part of our surrounding, and that is having very severe uh, effects on the human life. The major causes, of course, the urbanization. More and more people are attracted toward the cities. The city life becomes very full of hustle and bustle, and a lot of noise is produced because of this urbanization. The other human activities, as we said, the human traffic and the industries, etc., the traffic noise, the industrial noise. So they all mm, add to the overall uh, noisy conditions in our surrounding, which have bad effect upon the human beings, not only human beings but the other living organisms as well. They affect the human health very severely. It leads to high blood pressure, anxiety, rashness, headache among the human being. The concentration is lost. Everybody uh, feels the bad impacts of this noise in the surrounding, and peaceful leisure hours are very hard to get. So this is what we are facing in the modern world. Then is the other part of this topic, that is in the form of next question: the threats to water, soil, vegetation, and wildlife. We are Water is fastly diminishing because of so many reasons. The contamination is there, the excessive population of the human beings, etc. So due to which we are fastly losing the water resources. Then the primitive methods of irrigation are also one of the reasons due to which a huge amount of water is lost during the uh, flow of water from the canals and the rivers towards the fields. The water wastage through the canals and streams is a common practice, uh, because not only the water flow is obstructed by the sediment, but so many other obstacles like the garbage which we throw into the various canals and streams. Then the other problem which we are facing is the construction of the dams, which is very not poor in our country, not very encouraging in Pakistan. So this is the reason due to which we are facing a great threat to our survival in the form of water deficiency. The other threat is that is to the soil. The increased number of population is fastly depriving us of the cultivable land. More human beings need more living places, and the cultivable land fastly reduces. Waterlogging salinity, again, one of the major problems due to which the soil is threatened. Uh, Poor yield which we get from the soil, mainly because of the primitive means or the sources, the primitive methods, and the tools and the other sources which we constantly employ even in this modern electronic age, are also one of the reasons due to which our soil is under severe danger. Uh, we are fastly losing the soil due to the use of excessive chemicals in the form of herbicides, pesticides, fertilizer, etc. Domestic and industrial waste is thrown recklessly on the soil, which also result in the uh, poor quality of the soil. The vegetation also is facing a lot of problems due to deforestation, because the bigger trees, they protect especially the smaller plants and the grass over the surface of the land, which is a protective layer over the upper crust of the soil. So the deforestation is there, which is also leading to low rainfall and the global warming. The overall temperature of the earth is increasing, and of course when the rainfall is not there, so it is very unlikely to have any vegetation. Increase in waterlogging and salinity, one of the most notorious problem which we are talking again and again. The air pollution having its bad effects on the vegetation, especially the various poisonous gases added to the atmosphere have its negative effects on the life of the various vegetables. Similarly, like the human beings, the wildlife is also suffering. But apart from the environmental pollution and the environmental problems, the illegal hunting is also one of the problem. Excessive hunting of the innocent animals all over the world, and especially here in Pakistan, third world countries, because here the law enforcing agencies are not that active, and to control such kind of menaces. The deforestation is almost like depriving this wildlife of their habitat. So this is also one of the reason of the reduction of the wildlife. Depleting water resources sees these animals, they do not have other sources to quench their thirst. So when the water resources dry out and we lose water, so that also affects them very badly. The human overpopulation, the human beings, wherever they go, the animals would have to quit that area, and this is also one of the reason of the due to which the wildlife is suffering. Then another menace which we have adopted in the name of fashion is the domestication of the various animals. That of course is economically is one of the source with the help of which not only the people but even the governments establishing various zoo, they earn a lot of money, but this domestication of the animals have its negative effects because then the hunters, they constantly look for the capturing of these animals and selling them to the various animal lovers, so it also leads to this problem. So to conclude this whole topic, first we need to talk about the various environmental hazards in the form of water logging and salinity and the desertification and the uh, pollution, the various kinds of pollution, and these pollution, whether the atmospheric pollution or the water or the soil pollution, they have their very severe negative impacts on our lives, and we have to face for the consequences. Whatever ever is happening around us, we have to find a solution to it. And because someone said that future is the place where we have to spend the rest of our life, and every next day we unkindly and unintentionally add a lot of impurities, a lot of pollution, a lot of complication to this globe, which is making life miserable for the coming generation and for the people to follow us. So, with these words, we are concluding our topic for today. Let's hope you have got some idea of this whole problem. Even then, if you have any problem, so you can contact me. I'm always there for giving you a good response. Till then, inshallah, see you in the next lesson. Allah Hafiz. Till then.